So like I promised you guys in the previous video, these are my full impressions on the brand new iPhone XR, Apple's budget iPhone for 2018 and 2019. So in case you guys missed my previous video on the iPhone XS and XS Max, I will link it down below, and I should put it right up here, somewhere up here. It should show up. You guys can just click there to see that video, but stay right here if you want to learn more about the iPhone XR and hear about my opinion on Apple's budget phone for this year. So right off the bat, if you look on Apple's website, you will notice quite a bit similar between the iPhone XR and the iPhone XS, and of course the Max. This is because Apple pretty much kept the same phone together. I mean, it's got the same internals, the same processor, the same notch, a similar design, the same camera almost, same front-facing camera. It's got Face ID, it's got wireless charging, it's got the same lightning port, same speakers. It's almost the same phone. So really the reason that this is Apple's budget phone and not just another phone that mixes in with the flagships is just a couple really big reasons. Unlike we've seen with previous companies where they make quite a few subtle changes, Apple has just gone and made a bunch of garbage features on this phone and a bunch of awesome features on this phone. So if you look at the iPhone XS, it's got everything. It's got everything that an iPhone could have. The iPhone XR has all of that, but they just chose a couple things to take away from the XS and just make them terrible on this phone. The first of which is the screen. You're going to see comments all over YouTube right now about the screen on the iPhone XR. It is one of the worst screens that we've seen on an iPhone since way back in the 5 generation, in the 5S, way back then. The screen on the iPhone XR is barely above 720p. You're going to be getting like 750p, I believe it is around, so that means you can't even watch 1080p videos on the device. And if you're into videos, you probably want to watch it on at least 1080p, with the standard moving very quickly towards 4K. So the screen on the XR still has True Tone. It's got Tap to Wake, a cool feature that has arrived on the new iPhone X's, but they did remove 3D Touch. This is something that's still on the S and S Max, but it's gone on the XR, and a lot of people think that they're just going to be completely removing 3D Touch with the iPhones coming in the next few years, and this kind of makes sense since it's really not that great of a feature, and with advanced haptics and all the cool new haptic feedback features coming on other devices, we're probably going to be seeing Apple move more in that direction and starting to phase away 3D Touch from their lineup. Of course, since the S and S Max are the premium phones, they've got to have everything, and that's why 3D Touch is still on those phones. Another thing to note about the iPhone XR, my second reason why this one is worse over the XS, is the bezels. Of course, you're going to look at this phone and say, wow, like they really went to town on the screen on this one. They clearly expanded the screen from the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, making it a near edge-to-edge design like the XS that we have this year. But the bezels are going to be slightly larger on this phone than the S and S Plus or Max or whatever. The reason for this is that since it's an LCD panel, you can't actually fold it under the display like you can with an OLED. This has been pointed out multiple times by Marquise Brownlee, and so obviously we're going to have some thicker bezels, and especially the fact that you can see the color when you look at the front of the screen, it's going to make the phone look a little less professional from the front, and so it's going to look quite a bit cheaper than the S and S Max. So the third reason why you might not want to pick the iPhone XR over the iPhone XS is the camera. It's just a single lens camera system, but it is important to note that this is the same single lens camera that is on the XS and XS Max, so it's going to take amazing photos, don't get me wrong, and really the camera shouldn't really be a write-off if you're going to decide between the XS and the XR, because it does shoot very good photos. The only difference here is that in portrait mode, you're only going to be getting that machine learning, artificial intelligence background on the R, whereas with the S and S Max, you're actually going to be getting depth of field since there are dual cameras, so you can actually use real-life footage to create that portrait photo, whereas it's all artificial intelligence on the XR. So if you guys are an iPhone 8, iPhone 7, or even older user, then the iPhone XR is probably the upgrade you should be thinking about. I mean, unlike the S and S Max, it comes in at $750, which is about $250 cheaper. And of course, if you're in Canada, like I said in my last video, you're gonna have to pay $1,000 for the phone, so it's still gonna be expensive, but it's gonna be quite a bit cheaper than the S and S Plus. I would like to note though that the screen is really gonna be a write-off for a lot of people. I mean, it's gonna be just a terrible screen. It's gonna look bad. I'd also like to note that the screen is an LCD panel, not OLED like the other phones. It has a lower contrast ratio and less pixels per inch. It's got about 381 pixels per inch, where the iPhone XS and XS Max have about 481, about 100 more than the XR. And honestly, I'm sure Apple's going to be driving a lot of sales towards the S just because people do not want to have a 720p screen on their iPhone. But other than that, I think the XR is going to do really well. Personally, I think it's a super cool phone. If they had just increased the screen and made it a little bit better, I think it would have been the phone of the year for sure, especially with that price. Of course, it's not a budget phone. I mean, budget phones today are like $400, $500 phones. We can't really call it that. It's kind of in the middle between budget and flagship. But of course, if you don't want to spend the premium for the S and S Max, this is probably the #1 phone, or iPhone I should say, on the market right now. So if you guys are going to buy this phone, just tell me down below in the comments. I'm really curious to know why you guys are buying the phone and what features you're really excited for on this one. If you want to see more tech impressions and reviews just like this one, be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.